My train of thought has derailed. In this episode of Tom's Train of Thought, we're going to talk about some components that gave me some trouble last night. I was on my way to wiring up the turnouts, hooking up the relays, tinning the wires, but I wanted to start off by checking to make sure that everything that I had hooked up so far was working. And I finally got the 9-volt wall wart that I ordered that I determined that I would need. In previous episodes, you'll know that I tested everything out with the Uno with this shield right here and said that I was going to put the Nano on there when I hooked it up to the layout. And I've done several tests over here on the workbench, and I've done several tests over there on the layout, and everything looked good. And I determined that this shield right here does not separate the power from the Uno or the Nano through the barrel connector. You actually need either the Uno or the Nano connected up to get power to that. And it doesn't use the voltage regulator that you could see in the center there. That's a little voltage regulator in there, and I'm not sure why it's in there, because the Nano has its own voltage regulator, like right there, and the Uno has its own voltage regulator right there for this barrel jack. So everything worked good until I wanted to test it out. I got the 9-volt power supply. You can see that I just removed the Nano that was in there because I ran into a problem. I got my 9-volt power supply in, and I wanted to check it so far before I started adding more wires. I hooked up the power supply and I got lights on everything, and I started pushing the push buttons and the servos weren't running. And I start checking the voltage on this thing, and I had 9 volts coming in, and there was only like about 3 volts coming out. I'm going to use an Elegoo Uno and this thing right here. I noticed that these, even though you could see that there is a voltage regulator on there, it does not use the voltage regulator. It uses the voltage regulator of the microcontroller. You plug anything into this barrel jack, it doesn't work unless you have something plugged into it. So I have to pull all these wires off, take this out, and put this in here with the Uno. Fortunately, all the holes are in the same place, so I don't have to worry about that. I'll just put it back up in there, snap the shield back up on top of the Uno, and then put the wires back in. A little setback, and it cost me a couple of hours of testing everything out, testing a couple of different Nanos. I had to make sure that the Nano that I had in there was bad, and it is bad. It's not putting out the voltage that it's supposed to be. And you know, I put 5 volts in and only 3 volts come out, so that's not good. Instead of messing around with another Nano, I'm just going to put the Uno in there. The one Uno that I had a Uno, an Arduino Uno that I picked up from eBay, and it had the same issue. The voltage regulator wasn't working, so that's probably why it was sold on eBay at such a reduced price. I didn't notice that when I was first using it, because I was using it for testing, and I just had it with the USB cable, but I wasn't using the barrel jack on it. So the voltage regulator on there goes into use. So that was the problem with it. I'm going to have to get rid of those, or just use that using the USB cable. I could always put it on a USB hub and plug it in that way if I need to use it, powered USB hub, that is. That's my predicament here. I'm going to start tearing this apart and rewiring it. I purchased this from eBay. This is an original Arduino Uno, but it was available on eBay. I think I got a couple of them for $10, and everything worked out fine until I tested this thing again. I tested the Nano on top of another one of these shields to see if I was having the same issue. Maybe it was the shield that I had up there. But I got the same thing. I was only getting 2.75 volts out of it. And so I disconnected it, put 5 volts through the USB connector right there, and tested the 5 volts over here. And I still wasn't getting 5 volts. I was getting 2.75. So tells me that the voltage regulator on here was bad. Okay, fair enough. So I figure, well, I'll use this one that I tested it out on. And I hooked it up and tested it, and I was getting 2.75 on that one also. Come to find out that this voltage regulator was bad also. So finally, I got the Elegoo out, my old Elegoo Uno that I had laying around. I have several of them, and I never had any problems with it. And I hooked it up to the shield that has the pins on it and tested it out, and everything looked good. I was getting the voltage. I was getting 3.3 at the 3.3 pin, and I was getting 5 volts on the 5 volt pin. And on these pins up here, where I was supposed to be getting 5 volts, I was getting 5 volts. So I hooked that up onto the board that I made up and started wiring everything up. And it would be easy just to remove this and plug it in, but this one I didn't modify because I had to solder pins on to this one right here. Now, out of all these tests of trying different components and everything, I wasted about 5 hours of my time trying to get this thing to the point where I started out at the beginning of the evening last night. At this point, it didn't take that long. It only took about 3 minutes to transfer all the wires over. It would be nice if all these plugs were together, but some of them are just individual wires instead of a 3-pin plug, so that just made it difficult. So like right here, and one of the 2 of the servos are on extensions, so they're just individual wires instead of a 3-pin plug. I ordered some 3-pin plugs for future use, so they're coming I think tomorrow. I got to the point, I hooked up the power supply. Actually, I cut a piece out of it so I could put it onto the voltage regulator that I built for the relay shield, which I don't have one here. I have one similar to it right here, but I'm using the 4 relay board, and everything worked out. It had power on it. The relays were flopping. The servos were moving the way they were, but the one servo that I had for the single turnout was off. And I tested that. I don't know how many times I tested it here on the bench. I tested it over there previously and had the settings all figured out. But when I hooked up the new Uno, it was off. I mean, the settings were the same, but it was different. So I had to change the settings, the minimum and maximum for it, and I got the throw correct on it. So I made those changes, and everything is back to normal. Now I get to tin all my wires and hook all the wires back up to the relay. Everything is hunky-dory right now, and just a word of caution, whenever you're doing something, check it before you have it completely wired up to make sure it still works the way you had it working on the bench when you were testing it out. Because things can go bad in the interim. So I learned my lesson on that. And this isn't the first Nano that I had go bad on me. I've had several Nanos go bad on me. And these are the cheap ones that you get, you know, like 5 for $15 or $18. I'll know not to get them. I'll get the better ones. I never had a problem with the ones that I got from Elegoo. I don't think this one is the Elegoo one. This was one of the cheaper ones. But I'm going to stick with Elegoo for the Nanos. I'm kind of bummed out about this shield right here. You know, I mentioned it before that I really didn't like how it was set up, and I wish that DFRobot still made the GPIO shield, but they discontinued that. But I think I'm going to order, and I put it in my shopping cart on DFRobot for the other shields that they have. It's actually a servo shield like this, but it also has the RS 485 connection on it, so you could hook it up to JMRI and CMRI with that. So that's a serial communication protocol that you could use on it to connect to other devices. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to end up ordering that, and I'm going to start working on this again, and hopefully we'll get this thing running this weekend. But I might be going to, I'm not sure. There's a train show this weekend at Ocala. That's about 2.5 hours away. The whole state of Florida is covered with rain right now, so we'll see how the weather is tomorrow. Or on Sunday, there's a model railroad swap meet at the parking lot at Zitnik's Trains in Pinellas Park. So it's either one or the other. We'll see. We'll make that decision tonight or tomorrow morning to see how the weather is. But so until the next time, we'll see ya.